Gearing up for the big one on Weather for Weather Geeks this evening. It's Thursday evening. It is the 22nd day of January, and we've got the biggest winter storm we've seen in quite some time heading our way as we head into the upcoming weekend. So let's not waste any time and get right to the analysis and show you all the things we've been looking at and talk about the timing and amounts and all that good stuff. First things first, we've had stronger winter storms as far as the low pressure systems being a lot deeper than this one, but this one really takes the cake for the large expanse of this system that's going to impact millions upon millions of people. Look how many big cities are covered by some sort of winter weather alert this evening. It's a winter storm warning already from parts of New Mexico through Texas, including Dallas. It's going to be for ice for them. And then just about the entire state of Oklahoma and a good chunk of Missouri and Kansas and Kentucky and places like that already under winter storm warnings. And then farther to the east, it's winter storm watches, but these will become winter storm warnings, no doubt. Every county in the state of Ohio, almost every county anyway, covered by a winter storm watch right now. But again, an upgrade to a winter storm warning is a given at this point. By this time, probably tomorrow evening. And one of the ingredients for our winter storm is going to be the injection of fresh Arctic air coming out of Canada, meeting up with some pretty deep moisture coming up from the south, and those things meeting oftentimes results in pretty big winter weather events. Look at these temperatures. These are the air temperatures, not the wind chills across the upper Midwest this evening. Now, it's not going to be this cold around here, but I do think our air temperatures will drop below zero for a time Friday night and into Saturday morning. The wind chill on Friday, as the colder air bleeds in throughout the day, will drop along with the temperature dropping. We'll start out the day with temperatures in the teens, wind chills single digits to around zero. By mid-afternoon, the air temperature will be heading towards the single digits. The wind chill will be well below zero. Now, thankfully, the wind is going to diminish as we go into Friday night, but the diminishing wind, the clearing sky, means cold temperatures. So our actual air temperatures will be below zero as Saturday gets underway. So, it's Thursday. We're talking about a weekend storm, and when it comes to winter storm forecasting, and this applies not only to winter storm forecasting, but any kind of big ticket event, whether it be a severe weather outbreak in that season, or in this season, of course, winter weather. Once we're within 2 or 3 days, we can really start honing in on the timing, the likely impacts. We get in range of what we call the high-resolution computer modeling. It's like having a camera with a lot of megapixels. You have sharper images, you have more detail available to you looking at those models, I should say. And I get a lot of questions about computer models, weather models. Which one do you like? Which one is best? And the truth of the matter is, we look at dozens upon dozens of pieces of information and lots of modeling. It's not just the European versus the GFS, but that's how we kind of boil it down and try to keep it simple when we communicate these things, because we can't talk about dozens of models, even in videos like this. That would be very tedious and not a good idea. But one thing for sure, every model is on board with this idea of it being a big-time winter storm. Every model, of course, keyed in on the idea of the falling temperatures in the wake of our front on Friday. A variable amount of clouds on Friday. It's just going to be a bone-chilling day, and any clearing will be pretty temporary. The clouds roll back in before the morning is through on Saturday. But Saturday is the day this weekend, if you have to go to the grocery store or do whatever the things that you usually do on Sunday. Saturday is going to be your day to do them. I suspect most of the grocery stores will be pretty busy. A lot of other places as well, because this will be just a calm day. It's going to be very cold. Upper single digits to around 10. That'll do it for daytime highs on Saturday. But the snow does not arrive until late Saturday night. Now, it might try to spit a little snow or flurry at times up through 2 or 3 in the morning on Sunday morning. But after 2 or 3 in the morning, and especially closer to daybreak, the real snow will get underway. And once that happens, it's just going to keep snowing for just about the entire day on Sunday. We continue to not really have any concerns with a dry slot or a warm nose getting into our area. Sometimes, depending on the track of low pressure, you'll get a dry slot and or a nose of warmer air aloft that sneaks up the kind of the west side of the Appalachians and either dries us out for a time or changes our precipitation over to sleet or freezing rain. That sometimes happens. It doesn't look like it'll happen in this scenario because the low will take a far enough east track to keep us locked in the colder air around here. But there will be big icing concerns, of course, several hours to our south, especially well south of I-70, closer to Charleston, West Virginia, and then down into parts of the Tennessee Valley, the Carolinas, southern Virginia. That's going to be the zone that has the real problems with sleet and freezing rain. All right, so I mentioned computer models. Again, I could show you dozens upon dozens of computer models, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll boil it down to three of our major ones here. The European model is kind of the purple, or is that pinkish purple line? The main run, the legacy run, if you will, of the GFS is the red line. The GFS Ensemble model is the blue line. Now, we of course have access these days to AI models, artificial intelligence versions of many of the traditional or legacy models like the European or the GFS. We can't plot those up graphically on this graphic, but we do look at all that stuff, and they're all singing a pretty similar tune. There's a little bit of a difference in the exact amounts, but the bottom line is a big hit is coming. You can see between the GFS Ensemble, and the European, we end up 9, 10, 11, 12 inches or so. The European continues to be kind of the leader in the clubhouse as far as what it's predicting. Now, what are we thinking? A meteorologist does not just go by what a couple of models say. We look at all that data, and then we come up with our own forecast. I posted on social media today my hand-drawn snow accumulation map, not only for our area, but for the eastern U.S. I draw that with a pencil and a pen, or a piece of paper and a pen first, and then I make the pretty graphic that you see on the air and on videos like this. And so it's a process that experienced meteorologists, we just have to go through, and I find that it's best for me to kind of write things down or draw things before I devote the time to making graphics like this one. And this is what I think the odds are of exceeding certain outcomes. We think 6 inches is pretty much a lock. Even 8 inches is almost in the bag, I think. If you were to place money on this, I think the smart money is somewhere between 8 and 12 inches. And once you get beyond a foot, while the odds go down pretty quickly, I certainly can't rule out someone getting 13 or 14 inches or so out of this. I think the highest odds of a foot or more are south of Interstate 70 in Ohio, parts of southern Indiana back towards Louisville, Cincinnati, Marietta, Clarksburg, Charleston, maybe not Charleston, but Morgantown, I should say, West Virginia, and then a lot of the state of Pennsylvania, especially from Pittsburgh on east, and then a lot of the state of New York, including New York City, up to Albany. And a lot of New England will see close to a foot worth of snow. Around here, I think the rule, again, is going to be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 inches of snow. If you get 13, so be it. There's not much difference, practically speaking, between 10 inches and 13 inches of snow. It's a lot of snow, and it's enough to really, really cause some big issues. Very, very difficult travel coming up on Sunday. As far as the greatest one calendar day snowfalls in the month of January, thanks to meteorologist Gavin Sandell for compiling this information this morning. We're going to find ourselves, I think, somewhere on this list. Because as you can see, there's only 3 one-day storms in January on this list that are in the double digits. One in 1964, one more recently in 2009, and then one way back in 1948. Now, our total accumulation from this storm will come during the calendar day Sunday into the calendar day Monday, but the lion's share of it is going to be during the day on Sunday, and I think a lot of us are probably going to end up in the double digits before midnight Sunday night. So we're going to end up somewhere up here. Look how often January, mid-January is on this list. The 13th is on here a couple times, 17th, mid-January, right up through about today's date. So somewhere between, say, the 13th and 22nd, that's really kind of the winter sweet spot for us to see, storms of this magnitude. Now, that being said, we've seen plenty of big storms late in the winter. The moisture content in the atmosphere tends to be higher later in the winter, late February into March. And so while storms are not as frequent that deep into the winter, we oftentimes do have some big ones because you're getting into the spring season, or trying to anyway, and the atmosphere has a little more moisture to play with late in the winter season. All right, so most of us are going to try to stay in on Sunday. That's certainly the advisable thing to do. If you're a healthcare worker or someone who has no choice but to be on the roads, particularly midday and afternoon Sunday. Best part of Sunday on the roads will be first thing in the morning. It's only going to get worse from there. Midday, afternoon, evening, forget about it unless you have to. But if you have to, make sure you're prepared. You've got all-wheel drive on your vehicle. You've got all the stuff in your vehicle in case you do run into some problems. Because it'll be possible that some people get stuck, and it could be an unfortunate situation. Now, one thing that is kind of a bonus, a little bit, if you will, with a storm like this that's coming when the air mass is so cold, this will be high ratio snow. In other words, it'll be pretty fluffy. It's not going to be great for making a snowman or snowball, but it will make it a little easier to remove off of your deck and your patio and your driveway and all that stuff. If this were coming with temperatures around 28 or 29 degrees, you'd be dealing with wetter, goopier, more moisture-laden snow. But this is going to be the kind of snow that has a lot of air in it. It's fluffy. It blows around a lot. I think Monday, especially when the wind starts kicking up again, we're going to have a lot of blowing snow and reduced visibilities, not from snow falling from the sky all the time, but just from blowing horizontally across the region. So the snow to liquid ratios are going to be 20 to 1, if not higher, I think, with this system. Whereas a more typical snow to liquid ratio is something like 10 or 12 to 1. All right, once we get beyond our snowstorm, boy, are we locked into the cold. These heating bills are going to really sting when they come in February, because when you look at the jet stream level, basically this is a lobe of the polar vortex that continues to kind of spin down from Hudson Bay and impact a lot of the eastern U.S. And until this pattern changes, I don't see any sort of pronounced warm-up coming as we go through the latter stages of January and probably right into the first week of February as well. And this February forecast is part of our original winter forecast back in early November. We're going to be making some adjustments to this. This is not going to hold. I think the center of the cold is going to be much more over in here, kind of sort of like where it's been for a lot of the winter. But this idea of a warmer than average February, which oftentimes happens in La Nina winters, I don't think it's going to happen this year. And so I think you're going to see us put out a much different looking map coming up in about a week or so when we do our official February forecast. But that's the one month as part of our winter forecast back in November I had the least confidence in, and it's going to be the month that ultimately is going to be the most wrong about that original winter forecast. We've done pretty well otherwise so far this winter season. Thanks for hanging with me on this long, but hopefully you found it very valuable and insightful edition of Weather for Weather Geeks. I will see you back here on Friday, and stay safe this weekend. If I don't get your attention before then and you'll be out and about this weekend, keep it safe. Stay at home if you have to. If you can, I should say.